needs people like you.
At the beginning of the pandemic, people would go out on their balconies and clap and bang pots and pans together and celebrate the healthcare workers that were doing their best. And that lasted for a few months. And I would see that. I would go to visit my patients in their homes. And it meant a lot to me. But it didn't last for very long. And then for the last 2 years, the only feedback I've been getting personally is this. And that's really discouraging for me. It makes me question whether or not the healthcare I'm providing, whether or not it's worth it. The messaging that people receive is important. And if I'm out here doing my best and all I'm hearing is that I'm a criminal, I should be hanged, I've been assaulted, it's really discouraging for me. So I want to make sure that they get some of that discouragement as well, that negative reinforcement, because they're in an echo chamber. All they hear is how they're freedom fighters trying to save us, but in reality they're just children having a temper tantrum, and not enough people are standing up to them. I think from the beginning, the government has tried to do the minimum amount necessary because they're afraid of this, right? The more Doug Ford, our provincial premier, has been terrified of alienating these people, his voter base. So what they think is tyranny doesn't even scratch the surface of what governments around the world that in the past have done. Like the entire concept of a quarantine, that means 40 days, right? If in the days of cholera and the plague, like if you wanted to enter a city, you had to stay in a plague ship for 40 days before you were allowed in, right? We've had none of that here. We've had basically as much freedom as you could want, with some restrictions that obviously make sense. So when they invoke freedom, they don't understand what that means. Because to maximize freedom, you have to restrict certain personal freedoms, right? You can't drive your car on the sidewalk. You have to wear clothes when you go to a store. Like, it's ridiculous. In Ottawa, it's a disaster. I think that's an example of domestic terrorism. Those people that are harassing and assaulting the residents of Ottawa is a disaster. And I'm so glad that didn't happen here in Toronto yet. Like the Toronto Police Service hasn't done a lot to protect me as a healthcare worker in the past. They've protested in front of our hospitals and harassed and assaulted healthcare workers as we're going to and from work. And until last weekend, I didn't really feel very supported, but I have to give credit where credit's due. In the last week, they've really stepped up, and it was really a best case scenario here in Toronto where the healthcare workers were protected, ambulances were able to get to and from the hospitals, and the protesters were even allowed to protest. And we were able to avoid what happened in Ottawa. And I'm so grateful that they did that. This kind of American right-wing populism, extremism, it's not welcome here.
Freedom! Freedom! Freedom!